All right, the wild card weekend is over, and to be honest, I thought it was a really good weekend of football. So here are some of my thoughts and the biggest takeaways from a great weekend. I mean, starting out, Rams and the Panthers. This Rams team, I'm not sure what to think of them. I just don't think they're peaking at the right time. This was a team that was a Super Bowl favorite in the NFC not too long ago, and right now, it just doesn't seem like they're clicking offensively. It's just Puka Nakua and, what can Matt Stafford do? And defensively, they're a little susceptible to some big plays. And we'll see what happens with the Bears. But, you know, the Rams right now aren't playing very well. And I think that if you looked at Sean McVay, if you look at him on the sideline, he kind of seems like he understands that this team isn't playing well right now. And I don't know if that can change. I've always heard, and this is something that I've heard from coaches, you want to be playing your best football and peaking in this situation December, January, so that you can kind of ride that momentum into the Super Bowl. But right now, it doesn't look great for the Rams. Now, we'll see what happens, but if you're the Rams, I don't think that you feel very good about where you're at coming into the weekend. But you do still get the win despite maybe not feeling super good about it. Best game all weekend was the Packers and the Bears. Caleb Williams is really good. Ben Johnson, I thought at the beginning of the game, him going for it on fourth down in your own territory just seemed like trying to gift Green Bay. I understand that you want to be aggressive and you want to go out there and try to make a statement. I just thought that that first fourth down conversion that they tried to go for was not it and was kind of a terrible decision. And so Ben Johnson to me seemed like he was coaching a little reckless at the beginning, and this is something that I thought they did sometimes in Detroit. This was a guy that went for it a little bit more often than I would have liked if I was in that position, or even if I was a fan of that team. I thought that sometimes Ben Johnson got a little careless with his decision making when it came to fourth down calls. And this first one, I didn't agree with at all. And I'll be honest, guys, I thought this was over. At 21-3, I was like, man, it just seems like the Bears aren't quite there yet. They had a really good season. They had a lot of close wins this year. And I was like, it just felt like the Bears time, they had these progressions. And a lot of times in sports, you have this where you go to the playoffs, you then win a division, then you get to an NFC championship game, then you get to a Super Bowl, and maybe you win the Super Bowl. That's kind of the trajectory that a lot of the times this goes to. It's not the first time you're in it that you get to a Super Bowl and you win it. And I thought that maybe this was just the first step. This is Ben Johnson's first year, Caleb Williams' second year. This is just the first step of it. And then I don't know what happened because I don't think either team played well in the second half. Like when I was sitting there watching the game, I was like, when the Bears are got to get something together. Like they got to get something going, and it just felt like they never really did until the very very end of the game. And even then, the drives that they were able to sustain and towards the end of the game, where Caleb Williams hits the tight end on the big fourth down play, the 4th and 8, and he makes kind of this iconic Caleb Williams play that I think will really, if if Caleb Williams becomes anything that we think he can become, this is going into the highlight reel. That play is going into the Hall of Fame. Uh, his reel, because that was an incredible play, extending the play, being able to hit him uh, on the run, kind of doing his signature like jump pass that he does. Uh, an incredible play. But there were still just times where I was like, this shouldn't be close still. Like, the Bears aren't doing anything crazy. It just slowly but surely they let the Bears back in. The Packers let the Bears back in. Now, really, the biggest takeaway from this game to me, um, is despite the loss, a lot of people, or at least conversation, I guess, is being had, or people want conversation to be had about Matt LaFleur. I wouldn't fire Matt LaFleur. Um, I wouldn't do anything with him. I think he's a really good coach. And sometimes I think as fans, we forget, we think that we're right there close to being a Super Bowl contender. I don't think this team is. Um, I don't think they're that close to being a Super Bowl contender. They got to fix the offensive line. Jordan Love can be hit or miss. There are times that he's all over the map. And then there are times that he's really good. So you got to have a little bit more consistency with him. And I always think about this, especially in the coaching cycle right now. Like, if you were to fire Matt LaFleur, who are you getting? Who do you think could actually elevate Jordan Love, get this team to a Super Bowl or whatever you think that their ceiling is? There's not that candidate. There's not that Ben Johnson or Mike Grable like there was last year. There's not that guy in this year's class. And so you would be taking a flyer out on a lot of young OCs, if that's the way that you wanted to go. Or you're trying to go with like a Jim Harbaugh or a John Harbaugh situation where you're trying to bring in a leader. And that's not really what the Packers need, I don't think. So I don't think that they will. The reports today, they're not really worried about that. They're trying to get LaFleur in a deal. But Packers fans, don't try to run off LaFleur. He's a really good coach. He's won you a lot of games. I understand that in the playoffs, maybe it hasn't panned out the way that you wanted to. But let's not forget that only one team gets to the Super Bowl out of the NFC every year. And so there are 15 others that are not. So I just think that sometimes you are quick to pull the trigger on some of these things and it doesn't actually work out. So that was really kind of the main takeaway from the Bears and the Packers. Bills, Jags. Biggest takeaway for me is Josh Allen's a top 10 player of all time and maybe a top 10 talent of all time. He is phenomenal, single-handedly will this team to a victory. Unfortunately for Josh Allen, this is the year that you don't have to face Mahomes, don't have to face Burrow, don't have to face Lamar Jackson, don't have to play the other elite quarterbacks in your division, your conference. You don't have to face them. The unfortunate part for Josh Allen is that this is the worst Bills team that he's had. This team doesn't have the weapons. When Brandon Cooks is your guy, your go-to guy, you're in trouble on the offensive side of the ball. This is a lot of Josh Allen dependent. This is putting on the superhero cape for him. And I think when you look at the landscape of history of the NFL, he is starting to become one of the best. And he's not going to win MVP this year. He finally got his MVP last year, so maybe that's what's going to hold him back, as the accolades aren't quite there the way that others are, like Lamar Jackson. But he is special. And the Bills, they think these windows are open for a long time, but I would be very careful if I was Buffalo, and I would try to do whatever I can to put Josh Allen in a position to actually win a Super Bowl, because, these windows shut fast. And it's a situation, Kansas City this year did not have a good year. We're like, you know what? We're going to chalk it up. We're just going to wait until next year, see what kind of happens. And then, of course, Mahomes tears his ACL, and you're going to be waiting again for another year. So these windows are short. They do not last long. And when you have Superman, you got to give him the resources around him to get the job done. That's one of my biggest takeaways from the Bills. For the Jags, it's just a really fun team. They got a really good roster. Trevor Lawrence played lights out the last month of the season. And That's what you needed from him in the postseason. And unfortunately for Jags fans and Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence himself, just didn't happen. He didn't look comfortable for most of the game, which is telling because this Bills defense has not been very good this year. So the Bills defense haven't been very good, but your quarterback's still not comfortable. I thought that they went away from the run game maybe a little bit too early. I would have liked to see ETN get some more carries, but Liam Cohen, I think, was trying to get Trevor Lawrence in some type of rhythm and some groove, and it just didn't work. Wasn't there. So, uh, if you're a Jags fan, I think that you are in a decent spot right now. You have a really talented roster. You have a quarterback that you believe in, and you're going to have another offseason with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence playing. And if he can play more like he did in the second half of the season rather than the first half of the season, I think you're going to be in a really good spot to win the division again next year because this Jags roster is elite. It is a really good roster. Now, this is what happens when you draft high so many times, but this is a really good roster that the Jags have. And you're going to get Travis Hunter back next year, see where he plays if he's playing on both sides of the ball. So you got some skills. You got some skill on there on this team. You just got to put it all together and make sure that your quarterback is playing well. All right, one of the biggest games of the weekend, one that I was looking forward to the most because I thought this was going to be a really competitive game. Here's the big takeaway. The Eagles, I think you got to do something. You got to do something. I think A.J. Brown is as good as gone. There's no reason for him to be on this team anymore. Devontae Smith is a number one wide receiver. You can count on him, so I don't think that's going to be the issue. This is going to be A.J. Brown, or who are you trading him to, and now you're trying to decide if you are going to fire Nick Sirianni. I don't think that Philly fans like Nick Sirianni. I don't think that Philly players like Nick Sirianni. I think that it will be hard for ownership of Philadelphia to pull the trigger on this because he has won so much. If you think that it's him that is holding you back, what's the alternative? Same thing like kind of with the Packers. What is the alternative? Now, for Philadelphia, I think that you have enough gravitas in terms of some of the, like a Harbaugh. If they were like, you know what, we're moving on, we're not doing this, we're going to move on from Nick Sirianni, I think that Harbaugh could be interested. And I think that's an interesting situation. Here's where I think it might not work. Harbaugh is just like a better version of Nick Sirianni. He's a more grown-up Nick Sirianni. Meaning he has this side of the ball. I mean, Harbaugh was a special teams coach. It was kind of his thing. His brother is more offense, physical. This Ravens team that he's had has been really physical, but John Harbaugh and the Ravens have kind of been dependent on their offensive coordinator. And this is why Lamar Jackson is reportedly upset and doesn't like the situation that they're in, is because he didn't really like the direction of the offense, and you would have to hire an offensive coordinator. We've seen the Eagles be really good when they had a good offensive coordinator. When they had Shane Steichen, they got to a Super Bowl, and that offense was incredible. When they had Kellen Moore, they had a great offense. It was really good. They won the Super Bowl last year. This year with Kevin Patullo, shouldn't have ever gotten the job. I don't think that anybody was looking at him to be an offense coordinator and promoting him to this level. Never had called plays before in his life, which I understand you have to have an opportunity to call plays to be able to have experience calling plays. But this is a very dependent on the offensive coordinator's position. And is the offensive coordinator going to work with Jalen Hurts? That's the big question. And I don't know if Harbaugh, despite him being a grown-up, despite him being a better version, despite him being a understanding the pressure of these situations, and I think that he would understand the pressure of what it takes to win in Philly and what it means to lose in Philly and what that fan base demands of you. Uh, but that's kind of my take on it is you can fire Sirianni, but who's the guy? All right. And finally, last night's kind of, I don't want to say it was a dud, but there just wasn't a ton of action like there was in the other games. Chargers lose to the Patriots. The Pats move on. Um, Key takeaway from me from this game is, will we ever see it from Justin Herbert? Like, this is something that I've been thinking about recently. Uh, there is a time in your life where you go from being a kid who is pursuing his dreams, doing certain things, going after it. Maybe he's not quite there, he's not yet polished, to at some point you cross the threshold into, all right, guy, I can't give you any more opportunities. I can't do anything else for you. I think you might have reached your ceiling. Um, and we're starting to get to that point with Justin Herbert, where for years and years and years, it has been, well, he didn't have the offensive line, and well, he didn't have the coaching, and he had to deal with Brandon Staley, and he didn't have the weapons on the outside, and his team's always hurt. And all of that is true. And this year, their offensive line was terrible to end the year. They lost both of their tackles to injury. Like it is a, yes, they might have a good excuse. However, I just, at what point can we stop making excuses for Justin Herbert? At what point is it, sorry, man, like, I'm not giving you the free handouts anymore because you keep asking. Like, it's time to show something. And I think we're getting to that point where, especially if the Broncos win a game, if the Broncos win a playoff game and they can get to the AFC Championship game or potentially get to the Super Bowl, and you have Bo Nix, who's a younger quarterback, not as polished, not as good, not as refined, all of these things that people say about Justin Herbert, if he gets to an AFC title game and you still haven't won a playoff game, I think there are going to be some questions, even more amplified questions about Justin Herbert. And I fully believe in Jim Harbaugh. I think he's an excellent coach, and I think that he'll get this thing right. The clock is ticking right now. Clock is ticking on Justin Herbert, and we're waiting. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with Herbert because yet again, he was hit. He was under duress. He never seemed comfortable in the pocket back there. The Patriots defense did an incredible job of not making him comfortable. And you could tell because they just were all out blitzing all the time. Like there were the amount of times, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it felt like they were blitzing every second play. Like every other play, they were sending a blitz. And it was because they couldn't block them. And that was kind of the game. Even at the end of the game, when you had it was like 4 minutes left, you were down 2 scores, you kind of had to go. It was a lot of check down Charlie for Justin Herbert because they were sending pressure and you just had to get rid of the ball. There was nothing else you could do. So the Chargers got to fix some things. Obviously, their tackle situations got to get better, but overall, it's a team that they got to make something happen because the time is ticking on the Justin Herbert experience right now for a lot of fans. Maybe not Harbaugh. Harbaugh obviously loves him, wants him to. He thinks he's a really good quarterback, and I do too. Just you cross that threshold now into, all right, dude, let's quit talking about it. Let's actually be about it. And that's kind of the situation that we're in. But it was a great wild card weekend. Divisional round games I think are going to be fantastic. We got 4 really good games I think coming up this weekend, and I'm excited. Let me know who you think is going to win the divisional round playoffs down in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.